Hi there, and welcome to the Shiatsu Centre in Norwich. This is my treatment room, and it's all set up for the webinar. Thank you very much for taking part in this webinar. There's been a lot of requests for me to share the two workshops that I did in Vienna at the European Shiatsu Congress this year. So as a double bill, we've got a special 90-minute webinar, and I'm going to try and share with you all the material from those two workshops. It's going to be quite practical. If you've got anyone to work on, that's great. Otherwise, you can just watch the demos and try it out later on your clients, or some of the exercises we'll do that you can do on your own. Okay, so that's the idea. I'm going to show you some slides now, and I'm going to talk you through the beginning of the webinar, and as we go along I'll get you to do some exercises, and yeah, and then you can ask questions. So we're going to find out a little bit about you before we start. So Shakura is in the next room, and she's the producer, and she's going to launch one of the first poll, which is like a question, to find out something about you. So could you do that, Shakura?
Is this your first webinar?
Okay, yeah, that's it. Is this your first webinar? Right, so let's just see if this is your first webinar, and then we can yeah, if you'd just like to vote by clicking on your answer, we'll find out. Okay, I think that's pretty good. 86% voted. So most of you have been on a webinar before, which is absolutely terrific. For those of you who haven't, it's an interactive experience, and you'll find you've got a control panel that has got a questions tab. Now, if you pull that questions tabs down, you can type in some information, any information or any questions you've got, any feedback as we go along. Shakura in the next room will be monitoring it, she'll be able to pass those questions on next to us. Okay, so I'm just going to hide those results. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so let's just see if I can share my screen with you. So let's see if this is going to work. Okay, I'm just going to sort something out here. Let's just make myself the presenter. Okay, and I'm just going to show my screen to you. Okay, great. So now you should see the first slide, which is the introduction to this webinar. And as I said before, we're going to try and get through the material for two whole workshops, so bear with us as we go through the webinar. The first workshop I gave is called Is Shiatsu the Therapy of the Future? And we all know the answer is yes. Okay, and we're going to be looking at why that might be the case. And then in part two, we're going to look at some of the evolution in Shiatsu since Masunaga, and I'll be referencing the work of Kishi mainly and Pauline Sasaki, my teacher. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. I'm going to just bring this up. Let's have a look. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. So we'll just go through this. It's okay. Good. Okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Mike and all the organisers and the volunteers that made the whole Vienna Congress an absolutely amazing event. I just wondered, I think we've got a poll actually, Shakura, asking to see how many people on the webinar actually went to the workshop. So maybe you could just answer that poll and we'll find out. Okay, how's it going? 75%. All right. Okay, here we go. Look, about a quarter of you were there as a participant. Okay, maybe some of you already have been to the workshop I gave. And about 75% of you, 73%, and we've got one of them as a lecture, so that's absolutely great. Okay, cool. So let's just hide that, and then we'll get on with the webinar. Okay, cool. There we go. So let's have a look at the first. Let's have a look at the first. We've done that now, so yeah, let's have a look at the objectives of the first workshop. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to explore experiencing the 4 vibrational levels. The reason why we'll come to later. We're going to look briefly at the history of our common sense or our existential awareness, what the stories that we tell ourselves about the nature of our life, and how that has changed over the last few hundred years. We're going to look at some alternatives. We're going to think about shiatsu within that context, and then look at the whole concept of ki and why that's so important. Okay, so they're the objectives, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to find out, first of all, about your confidence in certain areas, so we've got an idea of where you're coming from. We're going to do an exercise on tuning into our own energy on 4 levels. We'll find out what's gone wrong with our whole idea of what we're doing on the planet and our awareness, our common sense. And then I'm going to do a demo and show you a technique that you can try when you're next working on your clients. Okay, so that's the program, and we've got about half an hour or something to do that. Okay, so let's just see how we get on. Okay, so let's just find out, let's just run a few polls and find out how confident you are in, first of all, TCM theory. So Shakur, if you could run that poll. Let's just find out how confident are you in TCM theory? Okay, we've got 75% voted. Okay, so most of you are confident. Most of you are confident in TCM theory. That's great. Okay, so let's have a look at the next. We'd just like to close that up, and we'll go to the next one. What about Masunaga? What about Masunaga? That's Kyonjitsu, the whole Masunaga Zen Shiatsu technique. So let's just have that poll. How confident are you in Masunaga Shiatsu, Kyonjitsu and everything? Just see. Oh, here we go. Now we know what we're dealing with. Oh, great. Okay, most of you are very confident or confident in using. So yeah, it's like 70–80% of you are confident or very confident. That's great. So we've definitely got some Masunaga Shiatsu people out there. So there's just one other question, and that's advanced energy work. The vibrational levels. How confident are you at working on different vibrational levels with your shiatsu diagnosis and treatment? What do you think? Yeah, there we are, much more evenly spread. Okay, how about that? Look, so we've got much more of an even spread, and we've got about a third of you are unconfident or very unconfident. So let's hope with this this webinar that you will find out some techniques. We'll show you some techniques that you can use to tune your work into different vibrational levels. Okay, great. So let's proceed with the slides and let's see how we get on. Okay, so we're going to go straight into an exercise now. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to draw. I get a piece of paper, like the one I've got here, and we're going to draw 4 boxes so that it looks a bit like the slide there. Okay, so I'm just going to do mine here. Okay, so it looks kind of like that. And we're going to label them with a P, an E, an M, and an S. And that's for the physical, emotional, mental, and the spiritual levels. And you'll find out why in a minute, because we're going to do an exercise tuning in to our own vibrational levels. Okay, and I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to go through it with you. Okay, it's like a meditation exercise. So I'm going to get onto my futon here. That's it. Okay, and I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to talk you through it. Okay, so you've got your piece of paper with the 4 boxes, right? And what I'd like you to do is just sit comfortably. You can sit in a chair or sit comfortably. Okay, and we're just going to relax, and we're going to tune into our own energy. So we're just tuning into our own energy. Tune into your whole body. Okay, and now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to tune in to the physical aspects of your body. Okay, so tune in, scan through your body, and just see how your energy feels on a physical level. Okay, now turn that feeling into an image. If you had to draw it, what would it be like? And then take your pens, and if you've got colours, that's great. And we're just going to draw in the box with the P how you're feeling on a physical level. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, have you finished? Okay, so then you can put your paper down, and we'll go on to the next level, the emotional level. So again, we're going to close our eyes. This time we're scanning through our body, and we're tuning into how our energy feels on the emotional level. Okay, so now if you can turn that feeling into an image, what would it be like? And then we're going to draw it in the second box. Okay, so you can pick a colour you think represents it. Okay, how are you doing? Finished? We're going to put it down again, and we're going to go to the third level. So again, sitting, relaxing, tuning into your whole energy field. And this time, we're going to tune in on the mental level. So it's the thought level, okay? Just tuning in on that level. Okay, now if you had to take the mental or thought level and turn it into a picture, what would it be like? And then we're going to place that in the third box. Okay, so I'm going to just pick another colour. Okay, so you should have like 3 the box is filled in by now. Okay, and we've just got one more level to do. So again, sitting quietly, tuning into our energy again. Okay, and now we're going to tune in on the spiritual level, whatever that means to you. So we're going to tune in on the spiritual level. Okay, and now turn that experience into a picture. What would it look like if you had to draw it? Okay, and then draw it in the last box. So let's see. Okay, very good. So you should have 4 different drawings. You can see my 4 drawings here, okay? But there's no rules at all on how you draw them, and you might find that you have drawn metaphoric images like the sun or the clouds, or it might be more spatial like mine. You'll see with this one I've got the spine and my hips here. The emotional level's more abstract, probably because I'm so excited about doing this webinar. You can see my mind is fairly active, and this is the picture I got with the spiritual level. Okay, and if you've got had any experiences that you want to share from this exercise, you can always put them into the question box, and Shakura next door will have a read, and she'll share them and pass them on to us in this room here. She's next door. Okay, great. So that's the first exercise. That's discovering what the different levels, vibrational levels, are like in our own energy field. And we're going to do an exercise a little bit later on in this workshop on how we can adjust our vibrational levels as we work on someone else. Okay, so now let's go. Okay, so now we've got a few slides, just some ideas about why Shiatsu, I believe, plays a very important role. It's the therapy of the future. And to examine that, to explore that, we can look at what's gone wrong with our basic idea or our common sense about how we think we are in the world. Okay? And there's 2 main things I'd like to explore with that. This isn't about facts, this is about the stories that we tell ourselves about what the world's like and our place in it. Okay? And there are 2 very important, very, very important influences on how we think about ourselves. And the first one I'd like to explore is the whole idea of neoliberalism, which is the dominant economic and social model that we have in the world today. And when I was in Vienna, I found out that Friedrich Hayek, who was one of the founders of neoliberalism in the 1930s, was actually an Austrian. So I broke one of the most important rules of any presenter: don't upset the home audience. Okay, so that was a bit of a mistake. But Hayek formulated the ideas of neoliberalism. The main features of neoliberalism is that we're all individuals and that we're all competing against one another, and that the economy and society will work better if we are like that and we compete with each other. The whole idea of society itself being a connected system where people help themselves out and where there's cooperation is completely downplayed. And this whole philosophy was developed in the 1930s and then they abode their time. The group of intellectuals that came up with the ideas put their ideas into the universities. They slowly got all of their ideas into the political system, and it was only in the 1980s, when Reagan and Thatcher came to power at the end of the 70s and the early 80s, that their ideas were presented as being the obvious way that the world should work. Okay, and they've been so dominant ever since. And they're so dominant. Here's a couple of really famous quotes from Margaret Thatcher. There is no alternative. It was seen as being the obvious way that the world works. And it's such a strong idea of individuals that Margaret Thatcher also said, there's no such thing as society. There's no such thing as society. It's just individuals all working against each other. Okay, so that's a very important philosophy about how we should be and how we are in the world. Okay, so that's one thing on the social side, and then the other most powerful idea of how the body and the mind work together or don't work together comes from what's called reductive materialism. And what that means is that the whole of existence is seen as being a material system. And it goes back right to Descartes, who his famous quote is, "I think, therefore I am." And that was the beginning of the mind-body split. If you go to the Science Museum in London, I recommend you go to the Science Museum. If you're ever in London, you go up to the top floor, you'll find there's a whole floor on the history of medicine. And the thing that really struck me when I went there was that in the entire history of medicine, in every culture in the world, except for Western scientific medicine, the spiritual aspect of the person is primary in the whole healing system. And that's in ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, Africa, Asia, right through the whole world. And Western medicine, based on materialist idea of the body, is completely on its own, okay, in that whole thing. So we've got neoliberalism making us convinced that should all be individuals fighting against each other, and we've got materialism, which tells us the story that the mind and the body are split, and that the body has to be treated as a machine to be healed. And they're two very powerful narratives that dominate how we think. Okay, so we've got those two things, neoliberalism and reductive materialism, making up our common sense, and they emphasize each other, and they emphasize that we're individual, competitive, isolated, and we are made up of material, mechanistic material. Okay, and you can see from the model in the picture, you can see that she's doing Doin on the triple heater meridian. And it's not surprising, because the amount of stress, the amount of mental illness is just rising. The amount of time, the amount of days lost because of anxiety is just going up and up and up. And a lot of that anxiety can be traced back to these very powerful ideas about how we're supposed to be. Okay? Okay, so I don't claim to have any of the answers to this, but we can already see that out of this system, the system's coming to an end now. We can see that by all the big changes that we're seeing in all over the world. And two of the strong things that are happening is people are thinking about a post-capitalist world. They're thinking about how we can connect again with the environment. These are all very strong movements. And you can see those as being a reaction to what's been happening for the last, since the 1930s with the economy, and also for the last 200 years with the whole idea of the scientific method. Okay, so we're trying to find something that's collective, cooperative, connected, and that has a spiritual dimension. And that's why I believe Shiatsu is so important in the future, and why Shiatsu, along with things like Qigong, yoga, Tai Chi, all those things are showing a massive increase in interest, because what they do is they help to heal the issues and problems that we've inherited through the way we've seen ourselves working. Okay, now look at this. This is interesting, you see. Look what tends to happen when we start to divide up and reduce everything to different layers. We tend to have different roles for different levels of the body, of the energy system. So the physical body we leave to the doctors and surgeons. The emotions are in the realm of the psychologist, or the agony aunt, if you can translate that into your own language. The mind is this level of the psychiatrist, and the spiritual level is separated off, and that's the realm of the priests. So we tended to divide everything up this way, okay? Now, the interesting thing about Ki, and this is why I think it's so important as a central part of Shiatsu practice, is that the idea of Ki, the idea of the material and the immaterial being connected, allows us to address all the 4 levels and not only contact them, but emphasize their connection. And that's why the concept of Ki, which is very difficult to translate into Western languages, because the structure of the concept is difficult for us to understand, makes that connection between all those levels. Okay, so how can we link those levels practically? Well, I'd like to show you how, okay? And I've got Zahara with me, so she's right here. I'm going to, Zahara's my helper here. She's been helping me out, and she's going to be part of the demo. I'm going to work on her. Now, the thing is, what I might do is just stop showing my screen, and then we have a full video picture. Yeah, okay, that's good. Right. So I'm going to just show you what I did in the Vienna Congress. I'm going to do exactly the same exercise. Okay, Zahara, and you can give me feedback and see what happens. Okay. So if you'd like to lie down here, yeah, so everyone can see what I'm doing. Now, if you're actually with someone at home and you're watching, you can always follow along on this exercise, or you can just watch me do the demo, and then we can and then you can try it out whenever you get a chance when you're working with a client. Okay. So there are many techniques that we can use to tune in on different vibrational levels. One of them is to use mindset or intention to change the levels. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tune in to the heart diagnostic area, and we're going to use our intention to tune our level. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, Zahara, also is just see if you can give us some feedback and see if you can feel a difference.
Okay. Yeah.
So first of all, I'm going to align myself, tune in, and then I'm going to think about the physical aspects of the heart, the blood circulation, the blood vessels, okay, and everything. I'm going to tune my intention in on that level, okay, and I'm going to palpate the heart diagnostic area like this. Okay. Now I'm going to switch up. I'm going to go up a level onto the emotional level. So I'm thinking of the emotional center of the body. Okay, tune into Zahara's energy again. And I'm going to repalpate. Okay, did that feel different? The touch, did it feel different?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting.
What was the difference then?
The first one was quite straightforward.
Yeah.
With the other one, I just felt a resonance around.
Around more.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know how to explain it.
No, okay, but it felt different.
It did.
And it felt completely different. The sort of information that I got from it was much more dense for the physical level. And then on the emotional level, I could feel a lot more movement here.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then we can go up onto the mental level, which is the consciousness in the heart. So let's go, let's tune in first of all. Align, tune in. Okay. and then palpate. Okay, and that's different again, more space. It felt like more spaced.
Lighter.
Lighter.
Sort of fizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have the Shen level, which is the spiritual level of the heart, which is the consciousness at a higher level, the Shen. So let's see what that feels like. Okay, different again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What was it like? Did it feel
different than the one before?
Yeah.
It's way lighter, but quite strong. I don't know how to explain it, but it was really nice.
Yeah.
I really like that one.
Okay, great. So look, that's what we've done here is we basically got information from all of the 4 levels of Zahara's heart meridian in a similar way that we did when we did this exercise, remember, on our own energy, okay? So when it comes to actually working the meridians, working the channels, we can experiment with the same kind of thing. So if I work here, and let's just see if I can get, do you want to just come down this way a little bit and let's just see. Yeah, that's better, okay. Yeah, so I can work, let's just try a couple, okay, we'll just try a couple. So if I focus in on the blood circulation, I'd get this type of contact. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I think about the emotional level, so I'm shifting up into the emotional level, be something more like this.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Mm.
Okay. Now, of course, what we do when we're practicing normally is we try and open all of the levels up to try and allow the energy to harmonize, you know, to allow the energy to harmonize. So the technique will be a bit like this. We'll go into our whole alignment. I think of use my intention to open up the awareness on all levels. So it would be something like this. An open technique would be something like this. Something like that. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's one way we can use our intention to adjust the vibrational level of our work. But as I said, a lot of the time when we're working, what we'll be doing is keeping it open and allowing the whole energy field to, the whole key thing to, key system to harmonize itself. Okay.
Yeah.
The key to the whole thing, as we'll find out in the second workshop, is the alignment, but we'll do some more of that later. Okay, thank you very much, Zahara.
Great.
Okay, great. So let's just go back to the slides again. Hey, it worked. Fantastic. Good. So there we are. That's the demo. The demo. You can work on yourself if you want to try it out on yourself. But I recommend that you just try it out on a partner if you can next time you get a chance to practice your shiatsu. Okay? Right, so let's just finish up this part of the workshop, of the 2 workshops, by just summarizing everything. Okay? My feeling, the reason why I think shiatsu and all the other things that go with it, the qigong, Chinese medicine, mindfulness, all those things, what they do is they're more than just a good thing. They're more than just something that's nice, that's something that's effective at healing. They're much deeper than that. As I believe, what they do is they deeply heal structural, philosophical and cultural issues that have given us a particular way of thinking about ourselves that is coming to the end of its road now. And also the other thing that I think is so needed is that it's a non-religious way of reintroducing the spiritual aspects of healing and of being via the concept of ki. And that's why I feel that ki, the concept of ki, is so important. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the first workshop, I think, but let's see. How does it achieve that? How does shiatsu achieve that? Well, it connects. This slide, by the way, came out of the workshop in Vienna. This was an extra one that I made up that was contributed by the group. How does Shiatsu do that? How does it heal those real structural issues? Well, first of all, the Shiatsu touch connects those four levels. We're not doing a purely physical manipulation here. Our alignment, our self-development, our intention enables us to connect the 4 levels, vibrational levels. The interesting thing about Shiatsu is that it's a high-level human development. It might not feel like that sometimes on a Monday at 9 o'clock, but generally it's a high-level human development. It requires a lot of study and a lot of self-development. But the interesting thing in terms of the future of a more holistic and more environmental future for us and the planet is that it's a very low tech. I mean, look, we don't need anything. Look, we just got this, we've got our hands, and that's it. Okay, our minds and spirit, but we don't need any equipment. It's very green. Okay, the Shiatsu Center here is heated completely by green electricity. We don't have any. We have everything is recycled that we've put in the bin. It's a very low energy thing. We don't need lots of equipment, so it's very low on resources. And the other interesting thing I find is a lot of my clients actually say, I would rather spend the money on having a shiatsu than just buying some other thing, you know? So what it does is it replaces material goods in the marketplace. So instead of just more stuff being bought, stuff like that, people are tending to choose to receive an experience that enhances their life, okay? And it does that through physical connection, a deep understanding through the touch, and through kindness. It's a kind thing to be able to treat someone with shiatsu. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of part 1. I think maybe we should have a little 2-minute break, and maybe you could, if you've got any feedback or comments, you might want to just type them into the question tab on your control panel, and then we'll be back in like a minute or something. Do you want to just take a little break?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to ask, while we're having a little break, everyone's getting some glass of water and relaxing for a second before the next workshop. I'm just going to ask Shakura whether she wants to come on and share any of the questions or comments that we've had so far.
Hi Cliff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Oh great, yeah, so Moira Branston, she was saying that switching vibrational levels is very interesting and not something that she's come across before.
All right, okay. Yeah, that's interesting because that whole technique is something that was developed by Pauline Sasaki and myself when I worked with her for 20 years. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the history of the background to that in part 2. So yeah. Do you have any other comments or questions?
And Daniel Smith says, I'm a 3rd-year student. How can I become more confident that I'm doing something worthwhile?
Okay, I tell you what, that will definitely address that in the second workshop. I'll show you a couple of things that you can, a couple of techniques that you can try out. But I tell you one of the most satisfying things that you can do in shiatsu is when you're working, if you can feel something with this hand, this is the mother hand, and you work with this hand and you feel something happening in here, that's the core experience. That's the thing that allows you to know that something's happening. What you actually feel here will continually evolve as you work, but that's the primary thing, is to get that feeling of connection between the 2 hands. That's my best bit of advice I can give you in a nutshell. Should we just have one more and then we'll go on with the second workshop?
Yeah, that's it for now, unless anyone else
Okay,
has anything.
great. Well, that's perfect. Okay, so now let's go on to part 2. And what I'd like to share with you, and we're exactly on time as well. Look at that, 45 minutes. We've got another 45 minutes left. What I'd like to share with you in this presentation is just some stories and some of the things that Pauline Sasaki and I worked on. I worked with her for 20 years, from 1987 to 2007. And so I'd just like to show you some things that we did. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so what are the objectives of this workshop? We're going to explore the history of post-Masunaga Shiatsu. We're going to look at contraction and expansion, and we're going to explore meridians as holographic structures. Okay, so let's find out a little bit about how confident you are on two aspects of that. We've got some more polls, I think, Shakura, haven't we? Let's find out. Yeah, how confident are you in applying expansion and contraction in your shiatsu? Let's just see whether you know anything about that. What have we got? All right, here we go. Here we are. Okay, look at that, 37% are confident. Okay, so many of you may have already been aware of how to use expansion contraction. Okay, what about the next poll? How confident are you experiencing the meridians as holographic structures? And what that means is feeling them and experiencing them anywhere in the body or off the body. Let's see. Wow, okay, look at this. Okay, a little bit less confident. Still pretty good though, 48% confident or very confident. Look at that. Okay, great. Okay, so we've got about half of you who are neutral or unconfident, so we'll cover that a little bit later. So let's go back to the slides and see what's next. It's the program. How are we going to do it? We're going to find out about you. We've already done that. We found out about your confidence levels. We're going to do an exercise on experiencing contraction and expansion. Then I'd like to share some slides with you. I'm going to give you a history of Pauline's work, and then also have a look at what's been happening to other teachers, how they've been developing the work as well. And I'm going to show how shiatsu's tended to move towards a holographic understanding of the meridians. Okay, and as a special treat, I'm going to attempt for the first time online, I'm going to share my Acupuncturist in Love comedy sketch. Have you seen that, Sahara?
No.
You haven't seen it? Okay, we should have a poll, how many people have seen the comedy sketch. Okay, now this was the high point of the workshops in Vienna. In fact, several people came to the repeats of the workshop and they said the only reason that they'd come was because they wanted to see the comedy sketch. Nothing about the work or anything else. The comedy sketch was the most popular bit of the whole workshop. So I thought I'd try and find time to share that with you. I've never done it online before. I'm going to have to experiment. I'm going to try and do it over here. So bear with me with that. But that's the reward you'll have for sticking with the rest of this presentation. Okay, so let's have a look at this exercise. Okay, we've done that. Okay. Right, okay, I thought we'd do this exercise as a self-shiatsu exercise. And I would like you to draw a picture of your experience. And I'm going to do the same thing. I've got my clipboard here. I've got my piece of paper. Okay, so you just need a piece of paper, and then we're just going to divide it into two, like this. So you've got two boxes, or two spaces. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to work Heart Protector 8, which is, I'm sure you know where it is, it's right in the palm there. It's a great point for anxiety and calming the mind and all kinds of stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to work it like this. I'm going to do it the same as you. And I'll take you through a contraction and expansion exercise, and we'll just see how our perception changes, okay? So, first of all, just relax, bring your hand up in front of you like this, take your thumb and place it gently on Heart Protector 8, okay? And now we're going to use 3 contractive qualities in the technique. We're going to look directly at our thumb, okay? We're going to bring our energy or our intention into our thumb tip, okay? And then we're going to just slightly tighten the thumb and press in to the point. Okay, and that's using a contractive touch. Now, if you keep focusing, keep thinking in, and keep a little bit of tension in this hand, the one that's pressing, okay, you'll have get a certain quality of experience of Heart Protector 8. Okay, and shake out. Okay, so now let's try a different way. Let's see if we can expand our perception of the point and see what happens. Okay, so we're going to try this. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to bring up this hand, take the thumb, place it lightly on Heart Protector 8. Okay, look at your thumb. Okay. And now I want you to open your peripheral vision so that you're not looking directly at your thumb. You can still see your thumb in your field of vision, but you expand your vision out so you can see, you'll be able to see at least the whole of your arm, probably in your shoulder as well. Okay? Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is use your intention, so you're not focusing on that point, you're focusing on the Heart Protector channel. So think of the channel. Think of it all the way down the arm. Okay. And then you can imagine it also going right into your chest, if you like, down into your legs. So you're using more of an open intention. Okay. And now let's see if we can expand it even more by using our alignment. So we're going to relax this arm, go into our alignment, float your head up, relax your sacrum, and now see if you can expand your awareness of that point as widely as you can, opening the peripheral vision, thinking of the connection of the point out into the whole body, the field. Okay, and then releasing this arm by using your alignment and opening up the shoulder and the elbow and the wrist. Okay, and then shaking out. Okay, now I'd like you to just think back to those 2 experiences and draw a couple of pictures on here to remind you of what it felt like to use a contractive technique. So put a contraction, okay, like this, and then expansion. Okay, let's just take a minute to draw what the point looked like. Be as abstract as you like. Okay, how have you got on? Look, here's my drawings. Okay, you notice that obviously the first one tends to focus in just on the point. And what happened to me, I don't know what happened to you, you can tell me, you can type us in through the, you can type in using the question tab, but I first of all got the sensation going down the arm, and then I felt it going into the heart area, and then I could feel it spreading out through my whole body. Okay, so that's an exercise just to give you a taste of what can happen when we use our intention, our vision, and contraction and relaxation in the working hand, how it can change our perception of the points, the meridians, and the person we're working on. Okay, so that's just to start us off. So we've done that, and you can just, if you want to share any of your experiences on the question tab, just let us know. Okay, look, here's a picture of Pauline Sasaki in her house. When I visited her, I was with her for 3 months and I was apprenticed by her. Lived in her house. I did the old-fashioned apprentice thing. I cleaned up every morning. I watched all of her sessions, and she was doing like 8 a day, like 4.5 days a week at the time. And I also attended all her classes, and I went through the entire syllabus of her training program in those 3 months as well. So it was very, very intense. And then I went on and worked with her for 20 years after that. And what I liked about her work was that she coherently developed the Masunaga system. And she had 2 main influences. She was influenced by Masunaga because she studied with him, and she also assisted on the famous 1970s workshops that Masunaga did at the Ohashi School in New York, where he presented a lot of his best material to huge audiences of like 150 students. And she worked with Masunaga for a long time. She helped write the book Zen Shiatsu. But what happened to her through her own practice was she started to get experiences from the energy field that she couldn't fit into the Masunaga system. And at that point, she searched for another teacher, and she apprenticed with Kishi, who was living in Paris at the time. So she basically, her mission in life was to take the experiences that she had working with Kishi and working with the energy field and combining them with the Zen Shiatsu system and integrating the energetic aspects with the body work, the physical body work. And that was her mission, and she spent much of her life trying to figure out how to do that. Okay, let's just review Masunaga's main contributions. We tend to think about the chart, you know, all the meridians everywhere, and how we had to learn so many more meridians when we were in the 2nd year, just when we thought we'd learned them all, the classical meridians. But one of the most important things that Masunaga developed in Shiatsu was the two-handed technique. Remember, I was just mentioning that earlier. The mother hand detects changes in the energy, and the working hand finds the tsubos, works along the meridians. The other really important development that Masunaga made was to use the hara as the center. So he would have us connect with our hara that allows this two-handed connection to occur in the two-handed technique. The focus was very much on the meridians, the extended meridian system, and the Kyojitsu reaction is central really to the diagnosis and also to our experience down the meridians. Okay, so that was Masunaga. Now, Kishi was Masunaga's favored pupil. He was his first disciple, and he worked with him in Japan. And he eventually broke with Masunaga. He separated from Masunaga because he went down more of a spiritual path where he worked on his spiritual development and tuning in and working with pure energetic field. Okay, so he moved away from meridians. He worked more with field-based techniques, and certainly when I was working with him in the 1980s, he was mainly doing etheric work, although later he went back down onto the body. Okay, So what Pauline did was she tried to take this perception of the energy field and figure out ways to build it back into shiatsu technique. And she did that with two main techniques. The first one was the alignment. So she shifted the center of the technique from the point of view of the practitioner, from the hara to the whole alignment of the spine. And one of the things that does is it aligns the chakra system, and it enables us to tune into vibrational levels, as we explored in the first workshop. The other function of the alignment is to allow the expansive phase to be present when we bring our body weight forwards, because what tends to happen is as we bring our body weight forwards, we will go into contraction. The weight tends to contract the technique. So the deeper we go, the more isolated and the more specific and the more local the touch. If we can bring expansion into the touch, then we should be able to bring all our body weight forwards, work deeply, but still maintain a connection with the whole energy field. And that was the principle that Pauline developed over many decades of her work, one of the main things that she developed. Okay, I would just like to emphasize, by the way, that it's not a good or bad thing. Okay, it's not like contraction is bad and expansion is good. It's not like that at all, because sometimes we do need to become local and focused. We do need that. And if you look at this picture here, you can see just how focused Pauline was at times. You can see how she's using the gaze. She's directing her chi or her ki straight down her arm, and she's working on a very specific point there. So it's not like a good or bad thing. It just depends on what's appropriate and what we want to do at the time. Contraction tends to narrow the focus and it locates things. Expansion widens the focus, okay, and it becomes less local. We get more of a field perception, and we can adjust those, okay. And look, here is a big table with lots of different ways that we can bring expansion and contraction into our work. Some of them we've already experimented with when we did this exercise here. Okay, when we put body weight in, it tends to be contractive, so we release the body weight to balance that out. As we found with this exercise here, if we physically tighten up our arm, then it tends to be a contractive thing, and if we relax and open our arm, then that tends to be expansive. If we work deeply, that tends to be more contractive, and that's one reason why a lot of people who get into energy work tend to work lighter and lighter, because they can feel the field much easier. Okay. Focused intention and open focus, fixed visual focus and peripheral vision are another ways that we can expand our awareness. If we move from the hara, that tends to be more contracted than if we use the whole spine, because it opens up the chakras. If we've got our alignment and we bring our attention to the sacrum, it tends to bring the focus in, and if we open up the occiput, that tends to open it out. And here's a controversial one, okay? Pauline always maintained that if you work slowly, it's more contracted than if you work quickly, okay? But it all depends where you're from. I mean, she was from the East Coast, you know what I mean? So she had a very fast rhythm. But of course, it depends on how you're working that makes the big difference. Makes a big difference. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we've got next. Okay, so here's the review. Pauline developed the work of Masunaga Shiatsu. She worked with expansion and contraction, and she moved towards an experience of the meridian as holographic structures. Okay, So, and that's a picture of us teaching together. It must be probably the 90s, I think it was. That was in Italy, Chiara. That was, someone took that photo when we were just talking after a workshop that we did, because we worked together. We did about 2 or 3 big international workshops a year over those 20 years. So we were always coming together, trying to figure out how we were going to take the work further on. Generally speaking, it was Pauline who come up with the crazy ideas, and it was my role to try and structure them so that anyone could understand them. That's what made us such a popular duo for all that time. Okay, now look at this graph. Okay, what has been happening to the number of meridians? Well, the interesting thing is that the number of meridians has been growing exponentially since Masunaga. I mean, if you think back to the classical system, we had just like 6 meridians in the arm. Okay, Masunaga doubled them and put 12 in the arm. Ryoku Endo doubled them again, so he put 48. Tetsuito had has an even more complex system with even more meridians. Okay, so there's a tendency to put more and more meridians onto the arms and the legs and the body. Okay, you can see where it's going. It's going to get to a point where there's an infinite number of meridians in the arms and legs, which can be simplified as being, well, all the meridians are everywhere. This is where it's going. All the meridians are everywhere. Obviously, as a second-year student, you know, that's one of the big issues you have is, oh my God, I've got 6 meridians. Now I've got 12. As soon as we've got 12 meridians in the arms and legs, what that means is we can access every meridian function in anywhere in the body. Okay, and the more you double up the number, it just means that you can access them in more places. That's all. Okay. So how about we do an exercise to demonstrate that? Okay, so let's just think about the lower back for a minute. Okay, so if you think about the lower back, what meridian do you think of is resonant with the lower back? Maybe we should have had a poll on that. Okay, I bet you probably the first thing you think of is the kidney meridian. So you think, okay, it's going to be kidney. Okay. Now you've probably had this situation in your own shiatsu clinic where you have, let's say you have 2 or 3 people in, they all have lower back pain, you diagnose kidney from the hara, you give them the exercises, you work it, all works fine, you think great, absolutely fine, everything is perfect. And then someone comes in and you say, well, what's the problem? And they say, oh, well, I've got lower back pain. So you think immediately, okay, it's got to be kidney, it's worked all those times, you know, it's going to be okay. So you do the hara diagnosis and you get something completely different, something like, I don't know, triple heater and lung or something. So then you think, oh my God, now what am I going to do? Okay, maybe your first thought is probably, wait a minute, it's probably kidney, but it's hidden. Okay, but the trouble with that is that if you do that, what you're doing is you're not listening to what the client's telling you. So wouldn't it be great to have a technique to figure out which meridian is really resonating with their lower back? Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get Zahara back in again, and we can try that. Do you want to just try that? Mm-hmm. Now, when I was rehearsing this webinar earlier, I did figure out a way you can do this exercise on your own, but it involves placing your own hand on your own lower back like this, okay, and feeling your own lower back, and then palpating your own hara and seeing if you can feel a connection between the lower back and the different areas in the hara. Okay, so you can maybe try that at home, or if you've got someone to work with, you can get them down on the futon. But let's see if we can. Let's see if I can show you how we can do it. Okay, so let's see. That's it.
How would you like me?
The same as before, I think. Although maybe if you go this way, just diagonally across that way, just to see. Okay. Yeah, just to see. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. And yes, hooray, it worked. Okay, so now look, how about this? Trying this, okay? I'm going to just palpate your lower back, okay? So I'm just going to slide my hands underneath Zahra's back here and palpate. So I'm going to put my hand here, okay, in her lower lumbar. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see what resonances I can feel between the Hara diagnostic areas and your lower back. Okay,
let's see.
All right, so we see? Okay. So there's two aspects to this. The first aspect is the connection. Can I feel a connection between the hand on the Hara and the lower back? I'm going to go through and just see what happens. Okay, so here we go. Heart, gallbladder, liver, lung, heart, stomach, trachea, lung, heart protector, spleen, kidney, bladder, small intestine, large intestine, small intestine. Okay, so what I can feel there is I can feel quite a bit of connection with the liver and the gallbladder, especially there, the liver. Could you feel that? Liver and gallbladder. A little bit of bladder, not so much kidney, but bladder.
I could feel the bladder one.
Could you? Yeah, bladder. And I thought also there might be some small intestine as well, just a little bit of small intestine resonance there. Okay, so the first step is to feel the connection. Okay. Now we can do one other step, which is a bit like testing it, and we can test the areas and just see what's likely to happen in your lower back when we work the meridians. Okay. So let's try it. So we've got the liver and gallbladder. So I'm going to test now. Now this I'm now going into a mini treatment. So here we go. Gallbladder. That feels actually quite good to me. I can feel it getting stronger there. Can you feel that? Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Bladder. Not such a nice feeling. It feels more like it's protecting itself or something. It just doesn't feel such a good connection. And should we try small intestine? Yeah. Yeah. What does that feel like? Does that feel?
It feels needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. We've got small intestine and liver as being the two meridians that tend to bring more energy into your lower back there. And that's a way that we can find out exactly what meridians are resonating holographically, because we can test, and you can apply this to anywhere in the body. So you can place your mother hand anywhere and test to see what's happening. And that will hopefully help anyone who's like, the question we had earlier is like, how can I be more confident that something is happening?
That's great.
Yeah, you know, because that's a good thing, isn't it? To actually feel something happening underneath your hand gives you a lot more confidence. Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. So we've just got 15 minutes left. So let's just see if I can show my screen again now. Let's just hope it works. Yes, hooray, fantastic. Okay, which meridians resonate with the lower back? And we've just done that, checking the resonances from the Hara. Now you can do that. You can do this exercise in different ways. You can do it from a conventional Hara diagnosis, so you can do your Kyojutsu reaction. Okay, you come up with whichever meridians there are, and if you want to check to see whether those meridians are resonating with the lower back or wherever, then you can check them. So that's one way round, and a more advanced way is how I just demonstrated with Zahra, which is you can test all the meridians. The problem you might have is you may have a lot of meridians that resonate, in which case you're going to have to choose which is the best. And usually I use that testing method to find out which is the most effective one, the one that connects the most. Okay, cool. Okay, great. So let's see, we must be getting towards the end now, I think. Let's let's see.
We had a few
Okay, so here we are.
from the previous.
Yes, go on. What have we got?
Yeah, the previous exercise we had, Nick Paul said the good news is that more and more evidence from neuroscience shows that we really are interconnected beings. Sorry.
Right. Yes. Good. Yes, that's a very good point. Thank you very much for that, Nick. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And that's. Yeah, go on.
Catherine
Yeah, go on.
McKee said my contraction expansion pictures are the same as Cliff's, so she had
Oh,
exactly
really?
the same as you. Yeah.
All right. Okay, great. Well, you have to email them to me. Email your pictures. We can have a gallery on the website. That's great.
And Joya says, I'm just wondering when you use contraction or expansion, or are they used at the same time to get an overall understanding of the key?
Right, okay, that's a very good question. Yeah, okay. So basically what you do is, it depends what you're doing, okay? Generally, we're working on the meridian level. Now, if you expand too much, what will happen is you'll get a perception of the whole energy field. If you contract too much, you'll feel the physical body, okay? So what we do is we adjust it so that we can feel that connection with the channel. That's what we do most of the time, because that enables us to find out what's happening when we press a subo, because the mother hand will pick it up, okay? So that's the main thing. If you want to get more of an assessment of the whole energy field, then you introduce more expansion. If you want to feel what's happening when you work a point, in other words, you want to increase your perception from the mother hand into the rest of the body, for example, then you can use more peripheral vision, okay? So it all depends on what you're doing. Another time, you may be focusing in on a small part of the body that needs releasing, maybe a joint or something like that. You can go into contraction more, work that, and then go back out and see how that joint is now connecting with the rest of the field, okay? So what I would recommend is just experiment with it. Experiment with it. If you ever get those days where you start working and you can't feel any meridians, you can't feel any key moving, or it all kind of goes flat. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It all just feels very physical. That's 99% of the time, that's because there's too much contraction in your technique. If you go back into your alignment, your centering, adjust the peripheral vision, adjust your intention, you'll get it back and you'll get back into the zone of being connected with the meridians. Okay, so it all depends on what you're doing. Okay,
and Antonella said, ciao Cliff. Question for the first part. During a session, do you change a lot from the decision on which level do you want to work? I mean, do you always work on the 4 levels each time? Is it possible to work with 1 or 2 levels only?
Right, okay. Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so generally what we do, the most valuable for me, the most valuable thing about that exercise is that it enables you to become aware of levels that you can connect with, because we all tend to have our own preferences. Some people prefer working on the emotional level, some people prefer working on the spiritual level, some prefer working on more on the physical level. So some of it's self-development work. Generally speaking, most of the time you want to try and check your alignment and make sure you're open to as many levels as possible, because that gives your client the biggest space to reharmonize their energy. Okay, but the same answer that we just discussed with the contraction and expansion applies. So if the person's very emotional or they're operating on the emotional level, you may want to focus on that level, find the subos that release the pattern, okay, because that makes it more specific. And then once you feel things moving, then what we can do is open up back out onto the wider spectrum of the levels. And what that does to the client is, first of all, they'll feel a powerful movement because you're being more contracted on that level. And then as you open up, they'll feel that integrating in with their physical body and with the other higher levels of their energy field. Okay, so it really depends on what you're doing, how you're interacting, what the aims of the session are, and how the client is responding to you, that decide, what you're going to do. Okay, so I hope that helps. Have we got any more at the moment?
Yeah, and Jill said, really felt supported in the expanding touch. So that was it for now.
Great, okay, good. Okay, so here's the conclusion to the second workshop, which is all the meridians in reality are everywhere. They act as holographic structures, and we can adjust our expansive phase to connect with the meridians and the energy field and the physical body, for that matter. We can adjust what we're experiencing. Okay, well, we've got 9 minutes left. Okay, do you think I should attempt to do the comedy sketch online?
Yes.
Zahra is saying yes. Okay, normally I need some kind of feedback on this, so I'm going to have to just see if I can. I'm just going to have to have a look at the stage area and see whether I can. I'm just testing out the stage. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. Okay. Right. Okay. So the purpose of it's got a very serious purpose, this comedy sketch, because it's to illustrate how ridiculous the world would be if the meridians were the same as the channels. Okay. And so I want to take you on a journey of a morning of an acupuncturist, okay, and it's called Acupuncturist in Love, okay. So what would happen? Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop showing the screen, and we'll just get the full video. Yes. Okay. So, what would life be like if the meridians were the same as the channels? Okay, well, here we are. The acupuncturist wakes up, okay, gets up out of his bed. Here he is, the bed. He gets up. Oh, fantastic. Right, opens a window. Beautiful fresh air pours into the room, okay? So the acupuncturist is going to take a gigantic breath in of that lovely air. And how does he do it? Like this. Ah, that's better. He can hear his partner downstairs shouting up, "Darling, darling, I'm making breakfast. Are you hungry?" The acupuncturist has to figure out, is he hungry or not? So what does he do? Wait a minute. My goodness, he says as he presses his stomach meridian, I'm starving. I'll need at least 2 eggs. Okay, so he's taken his deep breath in. He's found out whether he's hungry or not. So it's time to go downstairs and have breakfast with his beloved. So he goes downstairs. Okay, gets downstairs. He's having his breakfast opposite the one he loves. Okay, so he's eating away. Suddenly, he is overwhelmed with emotion. He has to express it. So he says, "Darling, darling, I love you. I love you from the deepest, deepest bottom of my armpit. And I can feel the love going right down here into my little finger." Okay? Suddenly, he realizes he's late. He's got overwhelmed by emotion and he's late. He's going to be late for work. So he decides he's got to rush for the door. Okay? So gets his bag. Okay? Says goodbye to his partner. Goes outside. Okay? Right? And he starts. He sees the bus. He sees the bus is going off into the distance. Okay? So he realizes that he's got to run the bus. Okay? So I'm going to just do this here. Right? Okay? So he runs like this. Okay? Why do acupuncturists run like that with their arms like that? Why do they do that? Okay? Because all acupuncturists know there's no kidney and bladder meridian in the arm. Okay? So he's running like this. Okay? From the bus. Suddenly, from behind him, someone passes him, running like this. He's amazed. How on earth is that happening? How is it happening? Zoom! Person goes straight past him. Okay. Person who's run like this goes straight past him, jumps on the bus, and waves goodbye to the poor acupuncturist who's still trapped like this. So the acupuncturist says, "How do you manage to run like that?" And the guy on the bus says, "I do shiatsu. I use the Masunaga system. Thank you very much." Thank you.
That's so good.
You've never heard that before?
No.
No. Okay, so there we are. That's my comedy sketch. You needn't have even travelled to Vienna to see that, because I've done it online now. It's out there.
Well done.
Okay, thank you very much for attending this workshop. It's been so much fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it was massively oversubscribed. We couldn't get everyone on, so we've been recording it and we'll send everyone a link. If you know anyone who couldn't get on the live event, then tell them not to worry, because we're going to send the recording link out as soon as we get the recording processed. And also, we're going to make this, I've got a few announcements. We're going to make this, make these webinars a monthly event now on the second Tuesday of every month. They're going to be open webinars, and we're also going to use this video setup to start doing video supervisions. Okay, so look out for that on the New Energy site and on the mail out and everything. Okay, so thank you very much. We're just on time. It's been a great 90 minutes. Really enjoyed being with you, and thank you very much for the support of the webinar. Okay, is there anything you'd like to say just to finish up? Shakura, you okay?
Just lots of messages of thanks, and yeah, Helen, an acupuncturist, deeply offended from the bottom of the yeah, lots of thanks.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I just assumed we should have had a poll about that. You know, are you an acupuncturist? No, I've got nothing against acupuncture. Okay, great. Well, I'd like to say a big thank you to Zahara, who's been helping me out technically and being my model. Do you want to just come say hi, say goodbye?
Bye, good evening.
And also a big thanks to Shakura, who's been working away next door in the room doing the producing. So, yeah, lovely to have you on the webinar, and we'll hopefully see you on another online event soon.